Hello and welcome back to the channel. Turn your phones on airplane mode, pour in your favorite beverage and relax while learning something about cats. Today we are going to talk about the history of the domesticated cat. With this, I mean the path they took from being wild animals to living inside our homes today. The first signs that cats were in contact with humans in one form or another comes from Cyprus. In 2004, archaeologists unearthed a grave at different sites containing the remains of a person, but also unmistakably the remains of a cat. These remains were dated to around 9,500 years before the current era. This does not mean that this cat was domesticated, but it does prove it was important enough to be buried with a deceased human being. It somehow fulfilled some kind of role in this person's life. The next signs of human and cat interaction are found in ancient Egypt. This is not a surprise. As we saw in the video from last week, it was revealed after genetic research that our domestic cat biologically descends from the wildcat, more particularly from the Near East wildcat, or Felis sylvestris libica. This type of wildcat lived in the Fertile Crescent, and as you can see in this picture, ancient Egypt was part of this area. In this area, the first human civilizations emerged. When humans and animals lived in the same place, interaction is bound to happen. Within the history of the domestication of the cat lies a problem. Dogs were domesticated from wolves when the humans were still hunter-gatherers, because there were clear benefits of having them around. They would fulfill the role of guards, fending off predators with their barking, or help humans in the hunt. Dogs are also used to living in groups, so interacting with humans came more natural to them. The cat, on the other hand, is an unlikely candidate for domestication. Wild cats live a solitary existence and defend an exclusive territory, which makes them more attached to places than other beings. Cats do not perform directed tasks, so their utility as a helper is stifled. The researchers believe that because of these reasons there is little ground to believe a community of humans would have actively made the wildcat a house pet. So how did we end up with those little furballs in our house? Before we answer this question, I want to explain something important: the difference between natural and artificial selection. We all know the words natural selection. Charles Darwin wrote about this topic in his famous book titled On the Origin of Species in the year 1859. Natural selection is about how individuals in a population of an organism are all a bit different from one another. This means they all possess different traits. Well, some of these traits of certain individuals make them better suited to survive in the environment they live in. And because they can survive better, they are more prone to able to reproduce. When they reproduce, their offspring will inherit their advantageous traits. The individuals without the advantageous traits will not be able to survive and reproduce. So there is a natural selection of individuals. The ones that are best suited to their environment will survive and reproduce at the expense of others. Here you see an example of natural selection with mice and owls. The first generation of mice has more light than dark mice. The predators of these mice are the owl. The first generation of owls has more owls with bad than good eyesight. The mice with a light fur are easier to be seen by the owls with bad eyesight and therefore eat more than the mice with a dark fur. The number of light mice declines and the dark mice number grow. They will reproduce more than the white ones, causing the population of mice to become darker. The owls with the bad eyesight will not be able to see and hunt the darker mice, so they will starve. The owls with the good eyesight will outcompete the others and survive. Both species have evolved because of the pressure applied by their environment. Artificial selection, on the other hand, is when humans take an active part in the shaping of the evolutionary process of a species by selectively breeding them. For example, the use of artificial selection has made it possible to produce all kinds of dogs, even if they all have the same ancestor, namely the wolf. If you look at the Chihuahua, it is difficult to see that it descends from the wolf, and yet it does. But selective breeding by humans made it possible to select certain traits and keep breeding with these traits to ultimately get a Chihuahua. Now to answer the question from earlier, so how did we end up with these little furballs in our house and labs? How did the next step proceed? The domestication of the cat started when humans formed agricultural communities and transitioned from a nomadic to a sedentary lifestyle. The first kind of these communities were formed in the Fertile Crescent, where also the Near Eastern wildcat lives. When these settlements grow, they were sources of food from stockpile or trash year-round and a safe place from predators. So, mice, rats and sparrows would start to venture into these human settlements. So naturally, when a prey animal moves its habitat, the predator follows. Researchers believe that's how the Near Eastern wildcat came in broad contact with humans. They followed their prey and were tolerated by humans while doing so. And here is where the natural selection kicks in. The environment of the wildcat changed, so it started evolving from its wild relatives and became more used to humans. And in this lies the difference with the domestication of dogs. The ancestor of the dog was actively recruited by hunter-gatherers to perform specific tasks. They had a practical role to fulfill in the life of humans. So from the start, humans started selectively breeding them to fulfill these certain roles. For domestication of the original cat, on the other hand, the process was more natural. Humans did not actively use them for tasks. The ability of catching rodent made humans merely tolerate them hanging out in their settlements. As you can see, there is a big difference between the domestication of the two most kept pets, namely the cat and dog. For the dog, there was an artificial selection, while for the original domestic cat, there was a process of natural selection. So now the cats were living near us, but not yet sitting on our lap. How did they take this step? The answer lies again in ancient Egypt. The ancient Egyptian religion often saw animals as godly representatives on earth. From around 2000 BCE, we see cats being inscribed on good luck charms. From around 1000 BCE, the cat became the representation of the goddess Bastet. Because of this, cats were kept around temples and places of worship. Of course, being a representative of a god, they were taken well care of. From this point on, the step into the houses of the ancient Egyptians was but a small one to take. From the number of cat mummies found, it is clear that the Egyptians were breeding with cats, and from this breeding and captivity originated more docile and sociable cats that were adapted to living among humans. Researchers believe that from this point on, cats were taken in as a house pet to show devotion to the goddess Bastet. The catching of rodent added to the value of cats, but was not the main reason the ancient Egyptians took them inside. Later on, when ship trading became more apparent, cats were taken aboard ships to protect a cargo of grain against mice or rats. In the settlements or later cities where these ships sold their cargo, a more concentrated population of cats emerged. Because of this, cats started to immigrate more land inwards. This also made the cat reach the Far East. Because there were no wild cats in the Far East, the domestic cat started walking her own genetic path. At this point, there originated a lot of distinctive codes that led to certain cat subspecies we know today, like the Korat, the Siamese or the Birman. Over time, more and more cat breeds emerged. In 1871, the very first cat show was held at the Crystal Palace in London. Here, cat breeds bred and developed by humans were exhibited for the first time. We are many years beyond the Egyptians who first allowed a cat to reside on our laps. Yet, cats are still at an earlier stage of domestication than dogs. Compared to dogs that were domesticated about 100,000 years ago, life as a companion animal is still fairly new for cats. Not surprisingly, dogs seem to win the title of man's best friend time and time again. They do have had a big head start in their domestication. While dogs were bred to perform certain tasks, this was not at all the case with cats. They were already good at what they were supposed to do, which was to hunt vermin. The cats did not have to learn new things, nor did they have to unlearn old behaviors. Meanwhile, their job changed from controlling the mouse population to being a companion animal. So man's expectations towards a cat have changed, but the cat's behavior has not. This is also the reason why our domestic cats today still have a strong hunting instinct. When trying to understand cats, it is important to keep in mind that they haven't been domesticated as long as dogs. They possess much more instincts that traces back to their wild nature. For example, cats today are still more attached to a territory than dogs. Moving can be a stressful event for them because of this. Also, it is important to remember that the domestication of cats had a more natural evolution than with dogs, where it was more artificial, a human construct. When interacting and caring for cats, it is useful to keep this in mind. We must tailor our approach to their needs and not simply see them as different shaped dogs. So this is the end of the video again. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe and hit that bell icon to be able to know immediately when I upload my new video. If you have any questions, you can contact me on Instagram, Twitter or Reddit. And I thank you for watching. I hope you learned something new about cats and I see you in the next video.